This is going to be an awesome show today. We're going to be joined by four-time Top Fuel drag race champion Doug Herbert. You're like, wait a minute here. What does that have to do with Dodge stuff? Are you kidding me? This guy's building a land speed record car. His plan is to break 500 miles per hour, and it's powered by two Dodge Viper engines. So here on the Dodge Garage download, we do this every couple of weeks or so. We'll do one of these shows. Okay. And I actually had, Don Jankowski?
Sure.
From Dodge Motorsports, right. So,
yeah.
So Don's wife, Karen, is a rally racer.
Sure. And yeah, I know Don and Karen, yeah.
Yeah. So we've actually featured Karen here on the show not too long ago. And when we were done, and Don and I were just kind of, shooting the bull, catching up, and he mentioned the land speed car with the Viper engine. So I'm like, man, I haven't heard about that program in ages. He says, yeah, you should reach out to him. I'm like, all right. So I did. So that's how we got here. So okay. What's the latest? Obviously, it's a Dodge angled show. You've got right. Viper engines in a land speed car. Holy cow, that's got people's attention.
I mean, the Dodge Viper engines are perfect for this car. They're narrow engines. They're short. They're relatively short. They're relatively narrow. And the car is really streamlined. So those Dodge Viper engines actually work perfect in there. We're using pro-charged engines that are probably a little over 2,000 horsepower, twin engines. They're actually counter-rotating engines, so there's no torque on the car. The car, originally the project started was me working with my dad on a project, and then my dad passed away. So Ray Evernham and I were working on the car together, and then it was kind of a project with our dads, really. Yeah. And then shortly after my dad passed away, Ray's dad passed away. And so we just kind of, the project kind of lost momentum. And here, I don't know, I guess about 6-8 months ago, I decided, you know what, I got to get back on this thing again. So I'm busy working on, I'm making the fuel tank and the water tanks and, just doing some things to try and get this thing together, with all the crazy COVID stuff going on. I don't know if we're going to be racing this year or not, but, right. One of these days we are going to be racing that car across the salt flats and going to try and set the world land speed record. That, it's like, I gotta finish it. I gotta finish it.
You mentioned your dad, and a lot of folks don't necessarily realize this, but your dad actually has a land speed record history, right? I mean, he's been to Bonneville before.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my dad, Chet Herbert, was original, one of the original guy to make aftermarket racing roller cams. The very first guy. So some of his old ads, Hot Rod Magazine, it said, all the ad said was roller cams are better than flat tablet cams. Well, like, duh, who doesn't know that, right? Yeah. But that was all he had to say because he was the only one that had roller cams. So yeah. Pretty neat. But yeah, Chet Herbert, my dad, was just a great hot rodder. And he's did a bunch of stuff at the drag races and then also set a bunch of land speed records at Bonneville too with cars that he built with Art Chrisman and George Barris were two of my dad's buddies that, grew up, they all grew up together, Southern California hot rod guys. And two of his really, really good cars that set a lot of records are actually in the National Hot Rod Museum out in Pomona at the LA County Fairgrounds. So anybody that goes there, just an incredible museum. I mean, they've got cars from Garlitz and Prudhomme and, McEwen, and I mean, they've got some just really, really neat cars, but two of my dad's cars are there at the museum and they're just beautiful cars. One that my dad and George Barris built. I mean, they're kids like 1952. Yeah. They're 22, 23-year-old kids. They built this car in 2 weeks, went to Bonneville and set like a dozen records in this car. And they had some guy that worked at Northrop, did wind tunnel stuff, helping them. And it was just amazing. My dad always thought it was great. He goes, man, we were just a couple kids. We went to Bonneville and broke all of Hitler's records, because
right.
The Germans had all the records after World War II.
They would have been, yeah.
I didn't even know this, but one of the reasons they built the Autobahn was to set world land speed records on the Autobahn. And so these, my dad was pretty proud of that. We beat Hitler, and it's pretty fun. Yeah,
that's
fun.
Wild. And, between the Germans and, of course, the British, too, have been huge in land speed records. And those programs were always backed by the actual governments, which was I mean, we didn't do that. Anybody that was doing it here in the United States, they were literally doing it on, with duct tape, Band-Aids, and Goodwill.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So then when you decided to start doing this program, I mean, did Dad think this was a good idea, a bad idea? Do you think you were nuts?
How it started was, so my two sons were killed in the car crash in 2008. And, I look back and I thought, I'm really sad that I didn't get to do something really fun with my dad, because I moved to North Carolina when I was 20 years old to do my racing. He didn't have interest in doing my racing stuff. So hang on, my wife's calling me. Hey, honey, I'm doing a podcast right now here.
Okay, we can edit all that stuff out. That's no problem.
So anyways, my dad didn't have a big interest in going drag racing. He said, Doug, I've been to so many drag races. I was at the first drag race they had at Santa Ana in 1949. I'm just not that interested in that. And so I watched that movie, The World's Fastest Indian.
Yeah.
I watched the movie and I thought, you know what, let's go to Bonneville. And so I called my dad. I said, well, let's build a Bonneville car. And he goes, well, what class are you thinking about? I said, unlimited streamliner, world land speed record, baby. And he goes, now that would be cool. I would be interested in that. So we started talking about the idea. And at the time, I actually had a Viper. It was a twin turbo Viper. The guys down at Underground here in Charlotte did. Yeah. They were like the guys, Hennessy and Underground, I think they were like really the guys with that. And they just did a great job on this thing. But it was 1,500 horsepower street Viper. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Unbelievable how fast it was. And so originally the idea was, I've got all these top fuel engines sitting around. Let's put a top fuel engine in there. Well, then we got looking at just the size of the engine, and the frontal area of the car was going to be so big that it wasn't going to be able to go as fast as we wanted to go. You can do basically engineering. We got this much traction and we've got this much frontal area, and it doesn't matter how much horsepower you have. You can't overcome the frontal area with the traction on the Salt because you just don't have much traction. So we actually reduced the frontal area of the car by like 2 feet by putting the Viper engines in there. So that was the logical thing. But it all came because I had a street Viper, a twin turbo street Viper.
And, that's pretty cool.
Unbelievable car. I mean, the car was just hauled ass. I mean, a guy would pull up next to you on like a ZX, 14 Kawasaki line. Like they look at you and I'm rev the engine up, or they rev their engine up and they're like, oh yeah, you want to race? I go, you don't want to race me. And then, I mean, the 9-second street car, the thing would sound like a stalker,
Right. Yeah, for sure. What year was yours?
It was a 2000. I bought it brand new in 2000. So I had the, window sticker. This Viper specially made for Doug Herbert.
Yeah, that's cool. I had a 2001 GTS. Mine was a sapphire blue, silver stripe, cognac interior, one of only 55 ever made, and a super cool car. I'm telling you, biggest mistake. I sold it about, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, I suppose. And I have very few cars in my life that I really regret selling. That's top of my list, of the one that I never should have sold that one. So, oh well, what are you gonna do? So, okay, so now that you've got the car, you've had this thing sitting around for years and years and years. What is it going to take now? Like from where you are right now to getting ready to run this thing? I mean, where are you along the process?
I was talking with Don actually about that. That was one of my conversations with Don was, we need the electronics. I'm a hot rod guy, right? I'm a top fuel guy. We don't have the electronics, Motec and traction control and all these, electronic fuel injection. I'm not familiar with that. So, that is that's really probably the biggest thing that we're missing now is the technology part of it. Like Danny Thompson's car went out there and they went 450 some miles an hour, but then you got that little Speed Demon car that goes 460 miles an hour with a single LS engine in it. So it's, I think having the technology that's available to us now, just makes our car different probably than, what the guys were running in the 70s. And, even some of the cars over the years, Vesco and all these other guys that have set these land speed records, or Mickey Thompson, that went 400 miles an hour back in 1962 or whatever. I mean, those guys were tough. And, now we've got to take advantage of the ability that we have with all this technology and the engine controls and the fuel management, the traction control, and just all the things so that we can hopefully go out there and not only break the record, but go 500 miles an hour and do something that nobody's done before.
Is Ray Evernham still part of the program?
Sure, Ray's my buddy, Ray's my good friend, and Ray's just a great guy, and he's such a smart individual. How it actually got started is I was working on the car at my shop, and Ray came over, we went to lunch, and we were walking around my shop, and he goes, well, what are you building? It was when I very first started building the car, and I had these custom 12-inch ring and pinions, differentials made, so I had a front and rear 12-inch ring and pinion differential that were quick change. So they look like a sprint car, differential, except they're 12-inch ring and pinion, so they're huge,
Yeah.
And he goes, what the heck are you building? I said, I'm building a land speed car. And he was asking me, well, tell me a little bit about it. And I said, well, I've got CAD drawings that my dad made to check this thing out. So we looked at the CAD drawings, and Ray was like, I want to get involved. What can I do? And I said, well, I don't know very much about suspension. And, we're kind of like a little bit aerodynamic. My dad was pretty smart on aerodynamics, but no formal stuff. And he said, hey, I'll help you on aerodynamics and I'll help you on suspension. And Ray, who's better than suspensions? Ray Evernham. I mean,
yeah, no kidding, right?
Ray really added a lot to that. And the CFD work, computer wind tunnel stuff, Ray really did a lot helping us make sure that we were doing the right thing and kind of really brought us to a really good level there. So I feel pretty good about the car and what we're going to be able to accomplish, running this thing once we get it out to the salt,
Right. So have you ever even tested the thing?
Nope. Wind tunnel, CFD,
Yeah.
modeling, computer.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. So do you have a next step, like from where we are today? What's the next step? I mean, you're going to get this thing bolted all together and I don't know, is there anything where any place you can test that thing without going all the way to Bonneville?
Probably what we'll do is when we get it all together, just to go test the systems and stuff, we'll probably just take it right over here. I'm a mile from ZMAX Dragway and Charlotte Motor Speedway, so we'll probably just take it over here and like push it down the drag strip and make sure the steering works and the water pumps are working and all the systems are working. But there's really nowhere to run it except Bonneville. So
wow,
put it on the trailer, go to Bonneville.
That is really, really good. And that you were talking about the guys back in the 60s and 70s having balls, dude. My friend, right there.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's balls or just being stupid, one or the other. But it doesn't matter. That's what we like to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Hot rodding. Absolutely. Do you know Dick Winkles, the engine guy?
Name sounds familiar. I don't know him though.
Oh, that's a guy that I need to put you in contact with then. So back in the day, Dick was part of Dodge Motorsports, the engine program, and he's retired now. But he still does some consultancy work with Prefix, which of course has been so involved in the factory Viper stuff over the years. And I mean, it certainly couldn't hurt to talk with him because he's Viper engine guru these days. I mean, he's
absolutely. Man. I would love to talk to him.
I'll definitely get you his information.
The website is outdated, but I've got a website for the car. It's LSR for Land Speed Record, lsrproject.com. And there's some, I need to get on there and update it with some new pictures and stuff because there is a little bit of progress happening. But there's some information on there about the project and the history of it and this, the status of it and so forth. So, anybody that's interested in going there and checking it out, lsrproject.com.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, here at Dodge Garage, you're using Viper engines, so you've got our attention, and folks would love to know. And the Viper and Dodge community have got a great history of helping out folks that are doing cool things with these products. And
I would love to have help from anybody that hopefully somebody will come along and they'll go, oh man, I've got the Motec systems you need to plug right in there or something like that. I mean, that's really the biggest thing probably that we're missing is, hey, I would be happy if somebody said, hey, I'll buy those Motec systems and they'll be mine. Well, hey, great. When we're done with them, you can take them, but let's go run the car.
Right, for sure. Absolutely. Hey, listen, before we get you out of here, I know you've the brakes hat on. You already mentioned the boys. Talk a little bit about the brakes program and what it's all about. I know that's how you and I first met years ago when I was working at the old Richard Petty driving experience. We had a safe driving program and we did some stuff in conjunction back then, but it's a great program and you've taken it really to the next level.
Well, so for your viewers and listeners that don't know, so my two sons were killed in a car crash back in 2008, and I was like, okay, here I'm, my whole life's been revolved around cars, right? So I decided, well, I want to teach their friends about being safer, more responsible drivers, and there's a place to go fast, right? That's why we go to Bonneville or we go to a racetrack and go drive fast. The street's not a good place for that. So, I got some law enforcement and some race drivers like Don and his wife. I mean, they're instructors for brakes, they're great. And we've got some really high caliber instructors that are teaching these teenagers a little bit about car control, really. I mean, it's crash avoidance is what we're teaching them. And it's, at the end of the day, it's a performance driving experience. We're teaching them how to really, drive a car and understand the capabilities of the car. And, I think teenagers from, like, when I turned 16, I mean, I had my 16th birthday at the DMV. I couldn't wait to go driving. Right, I think kids, the way that they view their cars has changed a little bit. Like, it's transportation for them. It's not really, for us, like, put wheels on, put tires on, polish the car, wax, kids, I say kids, I mean, our young adults are a little bit, they don't think about cars quite the same. And so coming to one of our brakes classes, it gives them excitement. Like, wow, I didn't realize driving a car was so much fun. So it really, not only are we teaching them safety, but we're really teaching them about how much fun a car can be and how much, how to understand the capabilities of your car. So there's just so many things that happen. We require the parents to come, so it kind of helps bond the parents and the teenagers. In fact, we did a program with Dodge, Mopar Road Ready, where we used the Dodge vehicles and did a program with Dodge, and that was great to do. Just giving these teenagers the ability to get behind a car and feel what I felt like when I was a teenager, how much fun it was to drive that car. It doesn't matter if I'm driving a 300 mile per hour top fuel dragster or a Bonneville car or a Viper or, a little car just to get transportation to and from work. It's driving a car can be fun, but it can also be dangerous. So we're trying to teach them about being responsible and, being careful driving a car.
Doug, it has been an absolute blast to have you with us here today, man. I can't thank you enough for taking a few minutes to talk with us here on Dodge Garage.
Hey, I'm happy to be on here. We got the Dodge Viper engine in the car, so we're part of Dodge family. So we're happy to be on. Look forward to talking to you again as the project progresses, and maybe some of your listeners or viewers will have some ideas about different ways to help get us to the self-class.
Outstanding, my man. Good luck out there, and we'll talk with you very, very soon.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
So you want an inside story? Just before we went to record this, Doug actually called me up and he had to reschedule by about a half an hour. And he says, John, I'm so sorry. I'm running late. He says, I had lunch with Bobby Allison and time got away from me. I'm really sorry. I'm thinking, you had lunch with Bobby Allison, freaking NASCAR legend, man. That's awesome. So I'm like, it's okay, dude. That's pretty cool. And he wasn't even trying to name drop, but I'm impressed, right? That was an awesome, fun time to hang out with him. And make sure you guys hang tight with us here at Dodge Garage for the next Dodge Garage download. I'm looking forward to sharing one with you. I'm John Hammer. I'll see you then.